Last time on the 2018 Big Gorilla Week.
The player can choose one of three monsters: George the Gorilla, Lizzie the Lizard, or Ralph the Wolf. But man, I do love it when action figures can hold on to all of their items. Another thing I like about the barricade decal is the artwork. It's super 70s, and but more importantly, it reminds me of my favorite album of all time, the 1966 Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Even though he is static, I love this version of George. Look at that face. Oh, look at that face. Oh, he's such a good boy. Look at that face, he's a good boy. Last time we looked at George, he was just a bit bigger than Davis. And this time, the canister has begun to mutate George. And he looks angry. George's Big City Brawl set includes a fence, a small helicopter, the core veteran Vulture, and a large but medium George. Let's get right to the helicopter. The outer design of the mini chopper is very sleek, and it reminds me of OCP from RoboCop. The cockpit is a lot like the Storm Strike helicopter from Kong Skull Island, which is funny because that one was piloted by Condor. This time, we get the enemy, Vulture. Just like the Storm Strike helicopter, the cockpit is pretty large, so the figure just kind of seems to flop around inside. Now, I think maybe if this had a seatbelt or something else to hold the figure in, it might work out a little bit better. The mini helicopter does have a steering stick right here that moves up and down. Now, the blades on this thing they're okay, but I don't find them to be as smooth as some of the other helicopters. I think part of it has to be because the blades are actually really thin. Now, the pilot and co-pilot of this mini chopper are Lieutenant Foster and Lieutenant Douglas. So far in my research, I don't know who these two people are in the movie. Maybe a few B characters, or maybe they're Lonard employees. Either way, I do think that it's cool that we actually get names on these things. That's something that the core was definitely missing. Someone said that maybe one of the pilots sat on the other's lap. Now, this helicopter comes with two Gatling guns, and they look pretty awesome. Another thing that this comes with are two missiles on either side, but I must say that these will come off very easily, and yeah, they will get lost. I think part of it is because they are held together by this peg system, but it only has a round part on one side instead of two. So yeah, these missiles they're complete garbage because they will fall off. This also has two wheels, but they do not roll. So these wheels, they're just kind of there for aesthetic. The back propeller does not spin at all. It just kind of sits there. And this helicopter is number 19. One thing that was confusing me was the underside. There is no year, or it doesn't say Lonard anywhere on there. We do get this number, but another thing is that this thing is scratched to heck, and this is right out of the box too. So I don't know why this helicopter is so scratched up, and it's right out of the package. I didn't wipe any of it off. You can see all that dust and scratching on it, so I'm not sure about that. But as for the Lonard stuff, actually, if we move all this out of the way, it's going to be very hard to see here. But right in between the Gatling gun, it does say 2017 Lonard. Next up on the list is the figure, aka the core's Vulture. This is Vulture version 3, and I really like these colors on him. Actually, for him, and the cameos of the other core figures that passed their edition to be in this toy line. The sage green, greenish tan, dark gray, and light gray are a top-notch color scheme. One of my favorites for the core. Other than the colors, he's exactly the same as other Vulture figures. No head swaps or anything like that. Oh yeah, and then there's also this fence. It's exactly like the one that came in one of the creature contact sets for the Kong Skull Island toy line. And now for the main event, the Medium George. And this one is actually interesting. His jaw can open and close, so that's pretty awesome. His arm can come out about that far, and it can go up about that far. And when we let go, he actually smashes down. So that is his action right there. Now we do have these seams around the neck, the arms, the legs, the ankles, the wrists. He has seams everywhere, but guess what? He is glued together. So none of these pieces, I mean, his foot kind of moves there, but it's not supposed to. It's probably keyed in. But he doesn't move, so it's not like the larger version of George. So his only articulation is his mouth, and his arm can go up about like that much actually. So a little bit more out, and he does his smashing gimmick. So he can either smash, or he can just wave his arm around in the air like he just doesn't care. Now this George is actually he's actually pretty hollow, so he feels a lot like the big Kong from Kong Skull Island. So he does feel very hollow, but I don't know, I really like him a lot. So I love that he moves his mouth, and even his arm bashing motion is pretty cool. So yeah, I really like that a lot from him. Now, even though he only has those two things going for him, I do think he is sculpted very, very well. So I actually like his sculpting much better than Kong, honestly. Kong is pretty cool looking, but George is just 100 times better, I think. It's really hard to tell which George I like more between the small George and the medium George, because I really like them both, and I think that they both would display very well. This set was $15, and not too bad, but I wasn't thrilled with the helicopter. The cockpit is deep, and as a result, the figure tends to flop around inside. Medium George is cool, even though he's limited. I love how he displays, and as a kid I would enjoy the fact that his jaw opens. The figure of Vulture has a top-notch color scheme, and I really do enjoy that. Not only that, but he doesn't need a weapon. He's a pilot, and that is perfect. I hope you enjoyed this review of the 2018 Rampage Big City Brawl Subject George set. And next time, we finish Big Gorilla Week with Mega George.